In a quiet neighborhood called Slavic Village in Cleveland, there lived a man named Armand Johnson. He had a troubled past and was in a relationship with a woman named Kira Collins. Their relationship was not going well. Kira accused Armand of physically abusing her and threatening her with a gun. So she decided to break up with him and asked him to leave her house. Then, on a hot July night in 2019, things took a horrifying turn. Armand went to Kira's house. He shot her multiple times, ending her life in an outburst of horrific violence. But his rage didn't stop there. He set fire to the house, trapping Kira's 2 children, Armand Jr. and Aubrey, inside. The innocent kids, just 6 and 2 years old, couldn't escape the flames and lost their lives. Armand's violence didn't spare their neighbor, David Cousin Jr. either. He shot David as he tried to flee, adding another victim to his senseless rampage. After the chaos subsided, the neighborhood was left in shock and mourning. Immeasurable agony and devastation was caused by Armand's actions. The community struggled to make sense of the tragedy and sought answers amidst the pain.
A developing story now as emotions run high at the scene where 4 were killed, including 2 children, on Cleveland's east side. Police have announced that the father of one of those children has been arrested in connection with those murders. Channel 3's Amanda Abraham is live there now where a vigil is taking place. Amanda, good evening to you.
Good evening, Russ. You can see a sea of purple kind of starting to show up here in honor of the 4 killed here along East 63rd Street, a man, woman, and 2 young children. This comes on the heels of the announcement today. We learned that the father of one of the young children was arrested. He was actually arrested on Tuesday on an unrelated robbery charge, but today it's now aggravated murder.
He wanted to kill my cousin for what? He deserved this.
It's been 48 hours of tears, confusion, and heartache. Today, police making the announcement that 26-year-old Armand Johnson had been arrested in connection with a quadruple murder along East 63rd.
We hope and pray that this person never sees the light of day again.
Police say that Johnson was the father of one of the kids killed, 6-year-old Armand Johnson Jr., along with 2-year-old Aubrey Stone, and their mother, 25-year-old Kira Collins. Their neighbor, 35-year-old David Cousin Jr., was also shot and killed.
We believe that Mr. Cousins was just a resident and a neighbor coming home and happened to stumble upon the suspect.
Police acknowledge the murder suspect's domestic violence history, but stop short of going into details of the relationship between Johnson and Collins, noting it's still early in the investigation. Around 100 kids with the Boys and Girls Club of Cleveland showed up today, honoring one of their own. One child even spoke up to ask the police chief the question many had in mind: why?
He did something that he should not have done, and it should not have happened to your friends here today. So these guys you see behind you, the community folks that you see behind you, we're going to do everything possible to make sure that that doesn't happen to any other kid in this neighborhood or in this city, guys.
For Kira's family, the loss is hard to put into words, dealing with a tragic cycle of gun violence.
Her father was murdered in 1994. He was shot in his head, too.
There's a sense of relief that there's a man behind bars, but there's also hope here that this is beyond justice, and there's a focus on the future.
My hope is that somebody will donate something that will be beautiful in this place. Will kind of change the negative connotation.
You just heard from David Cousins' sister. She actually works for the Boys and Girls Club here in Cleveland. She says she wants this to be part of a bigger message to protect one another in our community. As for Armand Johnson, well, he is expected to appear in court tomorrow morning. In Cleveland, I'm Annie Abraham, Channel 3 News.
Well, incredibly sad. All right, Amani, thank you.
Armand Johnson is a cold-hearted, merciless killer who murdered 4 people, including his own son, which is undoubtedly pure evil. Armand Johnson tried to evade justice by framing someone else for the quadruple homicide. Johnson used Kira's phone to send text messages that accused the father of Colin's other child of chasing her with a gun and threatening to burn down the house. Investigators determined that the other man who Johnson was trying to frame was not a suspect in the murders after discovering surveillance video that proved his innocence. It showed that he was working at his job at a Maple Heights sub shop on the night of the murders. On the other hand, there was plenty of evidence that proved Armand Johnson was guilty. There was DNA evidence, surveillance video from a local McDonald's, cell phone records, and a family member of Johnson that placed him in the Slavic Village neighborhood on that night. At the time, Johnson's place of residence was over 9 miles away in Cleveland Heights. The last time Kira Collins was seen alive was around 8:30 p.m. on the night of the murders. Surveillance camera video showed her going through the drive-thru at a McDonald's at East 55th Street and Broadway Avenue. She ordered 2 Happy Meals and passed them to her children who were sitting in the backseat of the car. Armand Johnson was released from prison in 2019, and this is when he and Kira Collins rekindled their relationship, but it was a turbulent union that Collins no longer wanted to be involved in. She called off the wedding, refusing to exchange vows with a man that was so volatile and violent. Johnson left and moved in with his grandmother and aunt in Cleveland Heights. For the 4th of July holiday, Johnson took Armand Johnson Jr. and Aubrey to his family's reunion in Detroit. They returned on July 6, only 2 days before Johnson went on his killing spree. Armand faced justice in court, where his violent acts were condemned. Despite attempts to shift blame and deny responsibility, the evidence against him was overwhelming. He was found guilty of his crimes and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The lives that were lost that fateful night left an irreplaceable void in the hearts of those who knew the victims and shook the community of Slavic Village. To Kira Collins, a young mother whose dreams were cut short by her ex-boyfriend, who shamefully murdered her innocent children, Armand Jr. and Aubrey, whose future was full of promise, but were taken too soon by Armand Johnson's cold-blooded brutality, and David Cousin Jr., known for his kindness and hard work, also falling victim to the vindictive killer's murderous rampage. Their deaths serve as a grim reminder of the devastating impact of domestic violence and gun violence in our society. Too often, people resort to violence as a means of control or revenge, leaving behind shattered families and communities. It is imperative that we, as a society, take action to address the root causes of such violence and work towards creating safer environments for all. Through education, support services, and stricter gun control measures, and human beings working as a unit, people together can strive to prevent future tragedies, so we can prevent as much of our future generations as possible from losing loved ones to love gone horribly wrong.
And now we go to 3 other local headlines we're following right now. First, Armand Johnson was sentenced to 4 consecutive sentences of life without parole. This after killing 4 people in Cleveland's Slavic Village neighborhood, including 2 children in 2019. Cuyahoga County Common Plea Court Judge Timothy McCormick sentenced Johnson after a jury convicted him of murdering Kira Collins, Armand Jr., Aubrey Cousin, and David Cousin.
With breaking news.
And that breaking news unfolded in Cuyahoga County, where a jury has convicted a Cleveland man of murdering his ex-girlfriend, her 2-year-old daughter, the couple's 6-year-old son, and a neighbor. Now, this all happened in July of 2019. 29-year-old Armand Johnson Sr. now faces a possible death sentence. The jury found Johnson guilty of 14 counts of aggravated murder and 8 other charges in the deaths of Kira Collins, Armand Johnson Jr., Aubrey Stone, and David Cousin at a home on East 63rd in Slavic Village. Prosecutors say Johnson Sr. shot and killed his ex-girlfriend, set the house on fire, killing the 2 children inside. And they also say after setting that fire, Johnson shot and killed that neighbor. The trial now moves to the penalty phase, which begins September 28th.